Good evening, Littleton. Welcome to tonight's joint meeting with the Finance Committee, January 29th, 2024. We apologize for the late start. This evening we will be going over more FY25 operating and capital budget presentations with the library, the clerk of elections, town meeting, human resources, LCTV, the assessor, accounting, treasurer, collector, tax title, veterans agent, disability commission, property, liability, insurance, transfer of employee benefits, and then we will adjourn. I'd like to open it up, the town administrator, with some discussion of the governor's latest information on the budget.
Right. Just quickly too, we also, after this meeting, we have our Super Saturday meeting, which is this upcoming Saturday at 9 a.m. That'll be covering the Conservation Commission, Board of Health, Cemetery, and then Police, Fire, and DPW, and then we're going to wrap up at the end of the day with sort of an overview of where we are on the budget. So just wanted to give a quick update on the Governor's Municipal Empowerment Act. This has been submitted. This is a new initiative of Governor Healy. First things first, the unrestricted government aid increase was 3%, but when we factor in all of the other components, our net increase was about 1.2%. So we budgeted 1%, and it's about $11,605 over that 1% target. So we're to the positive, but not by a lot. So that's somewhat good news, but we certainly were hoping for more on that front. Regarding the governor's proposal, there's a number of local option taxes that she's proposing in this, including increasing the local lodging tax ceiling from 6 to 7%, increasing the local meals tax ceiling from 0.75 to 1%, adding a new 5% local option motor vehicle excise surcharge, and some discussion about a new property tax exemption for seniors. So these would be, again, local options. These are things that would have to be voted on and be supported presumably by the Select Board, Finance Committee, and then, of course, town meeting. So, local options on that front. The other elements that are in here include establishing an OPEB commission to review unfunded liabilities. While the town of Littleton has done a good job in paying into our OPEB fund, I think there's a lot of other communities that probably aren't as far ahead as we are. So, we'll be looking at that probably with the schedules. Creation of a regional board of assessors. So I think this is a lot of communities are struggling with trying to find qualified assessors. So not that we're advocating for that here. Sorry, Kathy, say that. But that's but a lot of communities are struggling with that and looking at more regionalization on that front. And then again, allowing for increased flexibility for post-retirement employment. Right now, there's restrictions in terms of how many hours that people can work who are retired to come back and work in the public sector. There was I think there was an adjustment made for some of the COVID-related bills or laws that were invoked at that time, and now we're looking at maybe making some of that either permanent or increasing that flexibility. So on that front.
Why are you looking at me when you're saying that?
I was going to say something, Steve. It just seemed like it would be redundant at that point. So, the other piece is they're looking to make permanent COVID-era public meeting, dining, and liquor purchase rules. So this would essentially allow the capacity to have virtual meetings and make that permanent. So I think that was expiring relatively soon. This would make that permanent, as well as outdoor dining and the capacity for to-go drinks, take to-go drinks from restaurants. Next piece might actually be particularly pertinent to us because one of the elements here is to extend the bond terms for school borrowing projects from 30 years to 40 years. So basically the thinking there is it better matches the useful life of the asset. So that might be something that, especially with Schaefer Lane, that the town might be able to take advantage of. And this last piece, I'd say that the original proposal included a component where that would empower local leaders to control liquor license quotas, but that was not included in the governor's Municipal Empowerment Act. She did say that they're still committed to it, but it may come back in some other form. So just wanted to keep everybody aware of that. It doesn't mean that it's law yet. It's been proposed by the governor, but there has been some history with this in the past. The Municipal Modernization Act proposed under the Baker administration, which I think it was at the beginning of his tenure, that did go through for the most part. And so we may be seeing some welcome updates on that front. So just to make the Finance Committee and the Select Board aware of that, it's out there. So with that said, I will introduce Sam, who can present the budget for the library.
Sam Alvarez, Library Director. So some major accomplishments this year have been we've expanded the collection. Each month we add about between 700 and 1,000 new items to the collection every month. And that's just physical items, and then we also include hundreds of digital items like ebooks and audiobooks. We've improved accessibility. I've talked about this before, but we received the LSTA Access for All grant, and so we have hearing loops and magnifiers and book readers that are available to public.
Sam, I'm going to display page 160 for those that are looking for this. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
We've also expanded literacy programs, so we have taken a look at offering maker spaces. Our teen librarian is offering maker spaces using 3D printers, and we're expanding, looking at offering more information in the realm of STEM technologies. And also that leads into innovative programming, so we've introduced more interactive programming, technology workshops, and we're just trying to encourage lifelong learning here at the library. Okay. Some goals coming up, more in community engagement, more organizing events and workshops with other groups. We've done a lot with the COA, and we're trying to work with other groups like Park and Rec and other outside groups. Like I said, we've expanded the collection, so continue to expand it, offer more in the realm of DEI and LGBTQ collections and that sort of thing. Taking a look at cultural diversity, promote more materials and events that program and highlight different cultures and languages and perspectives. And we also would like to collaborate more with the schools and strengthen our partnerships with the local schools. So as far as capital budgets, there's no capital budget requests. So there's no capital budget.
I'll give you the cheer.
Yeah, a new library was enough, thank you. 5-year capital plan. So right now, really the only thing we're looking at is expand the possibility of maybe replacing worn out or damaged furniture by 2030. They get a lot of heavy use. So, but right now they're under warranty. So actually there's some things that broke, and I talked to the furniture people and they're replacing them. So it's, we'll see. But right now there's nothing major that we're looking at. As far as the department operating budget, no major requests other than the regular step increases. So it's a 1.07% increase over the previous year, or $6,965. And the regular increase that I asked for in materials so that we can maintain state aid certification. And then also the MVLC assessment did also go up because it hasn't gone up for several years, so they're slowly starting to increase it. So for those of you that don't know, MVLC is our consortium. We're part of, there are 36 libraries that are part of it, and basically it allows us to exchange materials with other libraries, and they can share materials with us. They oversee our software workflows, which allows us to check the books in and out, register patrons, that sort of thing, so they sort of maintain that for us. And so there's an increase there, so for an increase of 11,550.
And Sam, if I could just interrupt for a second too, we did, in terms of the wages that were entered for the library, there was an error on our end, so I would just note there's about an $8,270 increase to that budget that we have to be able to correctly enter that in. So just to note that, that we'll be fixing that to the final. So, but it does mean, as I said, an additional money we need to find to keep the budget balance. So, but that's, just to let everybody know that.
The other thing, Sam, is you just have on that screen 11,550 for MVLC. We only have a $10,000 increase in the budget there on page 159. We have it going from 39,000 to 49,000.
It's supposed to be 49,000, so.
Okay, that's 49.9. 49.9? So it's in there?
49,000.
Even, okay, okay. All right,
So is that that is the right number?
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, so the change is $4,270 in difference.
We have to, and I think that there was a question if the MVLC was actually in the budget, which it is, and we'll have to correct that as well, because if you're looking for that in the budget, it is, it's accounted for in our total, but did not actually get represented in your pages. So two things we have to fix on your end that we're not Sam's fault, that we'll take responsibility for.
Any questions?
Excuse me. Yeah, I assume we have some maintenance contracts for this building, and
Right,
where
so-
they
so-
show up, I don't.
So all the
find them.
maintenance expenses are under, is overseen by the town administrator's office, and there's a separate maintenance budget. That basically is a town-wide maintenance budget.
Okay, so it's covered in basically your budget, okay.
That's right.
It's a pretty good budget. Not a lot going on for the, but we had a lot going on in years past, so this is just I'll do real quick, 'cause, we killed the time, but I want to say expected personnel increases on the horizon. You didn't put anything on there.
Yeah, I'm not expecting any.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Can you go, I'm just trying, the numbers are all over the map in the book. On page 162, the salary
So,
number is
Mark,
different.
I could probably, we know that the numbers are off a
So-
little bit, so that's why, we could talk about it, but we know we have to do some fixes for the final, so.
But this is correct.
Actually, this is probably closer to it, because this actually includes the MVLC number in it, so, and as well as, again, the other increase. So I think it was just a couple tweaks that we noticed after we published, so we know we're going to have to tweak it, but he's going to get what he requested.
Okay, so, but I'm just going back to, like, if we were to say from what was published to what we're presented, we're off by the 4270 number?
We're off by the 40, it's 49,000 straight, right? Is that what it is? Not
No.
49.9.
No, well, in the book it
No,
says
that's
49
in the
here.
budget.
It's
It's in the budget, yeah.
Okay.
It didn't print, it's like a separate department, it's 161.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't last year's either.
It's on page one-
Yeah, I see it on 159, but
Okay.
this number says 81151, but the other slide had
860.
865, which doesn't add up to 811 plus 49s. So I'm just wondering which one's the right, this 865 is off by $5,000 from the other budget.
That's right.
So is the total number that we're off from what's printed in the book effectively $5,000, or is it?
It's actually, I think it would be the 865 plus the 8,270. Is that about right? Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. All right, thanks, Sam. Thank you. Okay, Diane. Next up, Diane Corey, Town Clerk and Elections is page 90 of your budget document.
Why are you so late?
What's that? Better late than never, right?
There you go.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. No choice. As you all know, we are here tonight to figure out budgets, and For town clerk and elections, our major accomplishments for calendar year were census, 100% were sent out and 90% were returned. In past years, we've found that census is pretty tough to get people to return. I'm still actually getting back 2023 census, even though many of you probably received your 2024 census today. And if you haven't checked your mail, you will probably find it. First time local election mailing postcards for mail-in voting. You'll receive from the state a mail-in voting application. On that it said all 2024 elections. That will include our local elections. You'll not get a postcard for the local election. When you check all elections, that's included. Elections, 100% absentee mail-in requests were sent out. Major accomplishments, sorry, that's the same one. Vital records requests 100%. Integrity of the office at forefront each and every day. Integrity of all elections always. Public records requests 100% completed and on time, whether for the clerk's office and others in town. Department goals for fiscal year 2025. Continue training for the department. Continue to stay effective and efficient in all aspects for the residents and voters. Search for grants for the department to continue to grow the department. So, for fiscal year 2025 capital budget requests, I think this is the first time since I've been here that we're actually asking for something. We're looking for $21,000 for pole pads. I think it might be the next slide that shows the actual pole pads. So these pole pads will enhance both the check-in for our town meetings as well as our elections. We all know how it gets very, very clunky when we come to our town meetings and there's a long line and you have to stand before the A, B, C, D. Now you can go to any person that's standing there and you can check in. All you have to do is give, again, you have to go and give your last name and the street that you live on, but you can go to any person that's there. We can have up to, I'm asking for 10, now we'll have 10 check-ins. So when it's a big night, there'll be 10 people that you can check in with, and it'll be a quicker check-in. As well, these will be used for our elections. So when you go to check in for the 3 different precincts, there'll be 2 in the front at the 3 precincts and 1 checkout at the back. And the reason for that is the state is now saying that we don't actually need any checkouts in the back, but a 1 checkout is what we're going to be using. So we'll have 10 poll pads. So legally, you don't have to have a checkout, but this keeps the integrity of the checkouts in line. So that's what the poll pads look like.
Diane, just quickly before you move on, right, in the cap plan, it has the polling pads at 19,000, so did that, right?
19, so they may have changed at the 11, but we'll take a look at that. Thank you, Todd. I would also note with Diane up here, she can give a little update. The clickers are in.
Yeah, the clickers have come in. Yep, they're all in, and well, 500 of them are in. I take that back. There was a little bit of a glitch with the manufacturer who he sent me an invoice and let me know that they were on the way. And when I looked at the invoice, I realized it was only for $15,000, and I questioned why it was only $15,000. And then I looked at it, and there was only 500. And so I sent back an email to him, along with my email that I had sent to him, and said that we had ordered 700. And he said, "Oh, sorry, made a mistake." And he said the other 200 would be coming forthwith. And so they're on their way. 500 are here. They're about this big. They're really small, but they look great. They've got the town logo on it. It says Town of Littleton. They've already been numbered, and they're we're going to have a training one night. We'll invite residents to come out and work with us and see what they think. And it says yes and no. They have the option and see how it works and see how they can change their vote during the night and go from there. Be ready for our May election.
Excellent.
Great.
We're going to do something on LCTV maybe, just
What's that?
show it on LCTV, how it operates.
Yeah, we can do that, yeah. I didn't bring one with me, sorry.
And thank you for insisting on the checkout.
Absolutely. And then for 2026 budget update, we are looking to possibly purchase some new voting machines. At the time, right now, we have machines that are about 23 years old. I have gotten a couple new, I shouldn't say new, I've gotten a couple more machines in case something happens to the machines that we're actually working with right now, the AccuVotes. Unfortunately, they're coming to the end of their life, and parts to replace. If anything happens, we'll be in a little bit of trouble, but we do have 4 spares at the moment. But as I said, if anything happens to them, we're not going to be able to replace them. So I would like to see us looking at soon some new election machines. They're about $22,800 for voting machines. If we could pull them up. So that's it's called ImageCast. They are 3rd generation. So we didn't look at the 1st generation when they first came out. We like to get the bugs out, let other people deal with the bugs and what happens with them. 2nd generation's already come out. By the time we're looking at these, this will be the 3rd generation. So I think it's a good idea to really be looking down the road. We have things that we have to do. We have to get your approval, we have to get the state's approval, and the town's approval before we can actually even look at ordering them. So
But these are on the state list.
these are on the state list, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where we're at with that.
How many of them would you be buying with that?
4, so that would give us 3 and a backup, something that we didn't have for many, many years. So we went probably 18 years, or 17 years without any backups for any of our machines, and then we finally got backup for our machines that we have now.
Diana, works similarly to AccuVote, where the voter fills in an
Totally
arrow?
different.
Okay.
Totally different. It's a much more modern machine that you could, the screen pops up and you're going to push buttons and it's going to take your ballot in. It's going to vote for you, and it's nothing like what we have right now at all. You don't touch the, well, you put the ballot in and you're pushing buttons and voting, and it will tell you it'll reject it if you overvote and all of that. So nothing like what we have now.
So you only have one voter at a time at each precinct? You have to have pushing buttons?
So once you vote, it'll tell you, as it goes through, it'll tell you if you voted wrong, in other
Okay.
words, so.
But you're still filling out a paper
Yes,
ballot.
yes,
and then
I'm
hands
sorry,
to the
but
machine.
if it goes through, it's like when it looks at it and you voted wrong, it'll tell you, so you can push a button to tell it to either overvote it or let it go through. I'm sorry.
Instead of kicking it back out
Yes,
and going
yeah.
into the separate
Yeah.
bin that you guys have to deal with later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You might use the phrasing invalid vote rather than voted wrong.
Correct, yeah, yep.
Go back and try it again.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. A lot of times what happens when somebody overvotes, they walk away from the machine, and we don't know who it is, and they've already left, and so we have to push these buttons and kick it through, and then it votes and pushes it to the other side. This one will basically, if we'll tell it to override it, and it'll push it through and vote everything else but that, kind of like what it does now, but we don't have that ability to push it to a different side. It just cancels out that actual vote.
Thank you.
And the cost again was
$22,800 for 4.
For 4.
Yes. And then it would be $3,000, the first year would be free maintenance, and it'd be $3,000 for maintenance thereafter. Okay, so now we're talking wages and expenses, and this is in the town clerk's side, and the expenses are basic expenses for us to go to classes. More of the expenses are going to be obviously on the election side. This is basic stuff that we have to, for postage, for paper, for, that's pretty much all we do on the clerk's side. The big expenses come on the election side.
So on the clerk side, the professional services went up by 157%.
On the what side? So we moved a lot of things that were on the election side, like the when we. I'm sorry.
Police.
Oh, is the 50,
yeah, that's,
is the 5,500 the town management and election data was moved? Is that it?
we moved that, and we moved the monies that we spend for code. We moved into town clerk side because that's on our town meeting, so I didn't feel that it should be on the election side. So wages on that is the assistant town clerk. She gets overtime for Saturday elections and all of the town meetings that she works and anything extra that she helps out on. And election expenses. So we switched out the police detail is a separate line item now because we felt that it should be pointed out that we have to have that. We have 2 extra elections this year. We have the September primary and then the November election. We have early voting, which is almost 2 full weeks for the November. It's 6 days for the primary, and that's all day, 3 Saturdays. And so the police are there all that entire time, and we're there all those days. So she has overtime, all that. So the overtime isn't much on that, but the expenses, all our time, the foods that we have to purchase for all those days because we have people that are working all those times. We have postage on all of that. We have mailing for every day. We have people that come in that do all of the early voting. So we already, for right now, we have almost 700 people that have requested early voting for the entire year. So we have to think of all the postage and everything that's going out for the entire year. And that's only for 4 days that we've received back for that. So we have to look at the big picture for all of that.
So, Dan, so what's captured, so other expenses, or other supplies, what's captured in that? That one jumped up a lot.
So all of our vital records paper, so we have 2 sets of vital records paper. We have the specialized paper that we get from the state, and then we have the archival paper that we have to keep all of the records. We have the warrants, and then after the warrants happen and all of the reports that are written, that are done up after we do all of the town meetings, the records that have to be kept, and then all of the vitals. So you have 2 sets of vitals. You have the vitals that go out to the people, and then the vitals that are kept. So they have to be on archival paper, and they have to be on Massachusetts paper. So there's 2 different sets that we have to purchase every year, and there's and they have to be that special archival paper that we keep, and then we send it out and we get them bound.
So is that new for fiscal 25? It was like $400 last year, and it's like 76 this year. So I just didn't know if that was like a new requirement or.
No, we've always had it, and we have to purchase it one has to be purchased from the state, and one has to be purchased, from a vendor that actually has it.
So you just don't purchase it every year, you purchase it as we need it?
Yeah, we purchase it. It just depends on how many, like how many deaths we have and how many requests we have. It just depends on what and how much we have left over. And like this year, we didn't have to purchase anything from the state because we actually had enough left over. We try to figure can never figure deaths and births. It's just one of those things.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is
She
Michelle
assured
Bott.
me that all the garage doors won't be going up and down.
Just your TVs will be changing.
Just to keep people, right?
So next up is Michelle Bott with Human Resources, is page 86 of the budget.
Good evening, Michelle Vibert, Human Resources Director. Thank you for having me tonight. And I'll jump right into the major accomplishments we had last calendar year. So we successfully transferred, as you know, some of you may know, we successfully moved one full FTE from our department to the Treasurer's Office, who is now our payroll and benefits coordinator. We successfully collaborated with the Treasurer's Office to delineate differences in duties that do have overlap between the Human Resources Office and the Treasurer's Office. There was a lot of kind of who's doing what because there was no established process when the duties did get split. So we pulled that back together. We created a staff engagement committee. The staff engagement committee is a committee made up of 5 non-union employees that basically handle anything from policy management to an employee request. We have a suggestion box that we did put in our lunchroom, so anyone can make any request they so please. They also work on pretty much, obviously engagement is a big word, but one of the major things we've been able to accomplish is hosting employee events. And one of those being the holiday luncheon where we introduced Jim. I was given feedback that it was the most attended event by our employees in Littleton since longtime employees have been here, which was nice to hear. So we're getting out there more, which is nice. We're doing a better job of getting everyone engaged. They also handle, we'll be looking at, this is one of the goals I'll go over, which Gary will appreciate, the tuition reimbursement program and the bonus recognition program. We have implemented new benefit plans. We use the standard for the long-term disability, and we use AFLAC for short-term disability. We did move away from town paid, and now it is voluntarily paid by the employee if they so choose. We've utilized our Munis payroll software for ACA reporting, which is done every year. That's the Affordable Care Act. We have to report that we have affordable minimum essential coverage. And we've also used it for our open enrollment process where employees are able to go into the employee self-service portal and they're able to elect benefits each year when the plan year turns over at the end of the fiscal year. We were able to, on January 1st of last year, we were able to finalize the classification and compensation plan. Thank you to our internal team we had that was able to do that. We updated our retiree database with outside assistance from our prior HR administrator who was retired. She was able to update that database, bringing it up to date, which allows us to do a lot of reporting that doesn't just impact our office, it impacts other offices as well. We have audited our full suite of benefits, health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, going across the board, FSA, all of them have been audited, and we're making better practices on keeping up with those for reconciliation. The Treasurer's Office does a great job on reconciling them every month for our withholding accounts. And last but not least, we got quite a few requests for, they come up so often, every so often, of payroll requests from years ago. They could be from 1990, they could be from the 2000s, and a lot of those sometimes are not electronic, which can cause hours in a vault searching through paper records. So we did have assistance scanning documents in for those payroll registers to make them searchable, and they are now into our Laserfiche system, which allows them to be searchable, which has cut down a significant amount of time.
Before you switch pages, If you can just go back. With regard to making the employees pay for the short and long-term disability, I'll just say I've been approached by a number of town employees who are pretty unhappy with that. I wouldn't describe it as implementing a new benefit plan. I'd describe it as making town employees pay for benefit that used to be partially covered by the town.
So basically, during bargaining, my understanding, I came in after collective bargaining was settled with some of the unions. It was like 3 unions, I think, at that point. It was written into their contract that the town paid short-term and long-term would go away at the end of that fiscal year, that the first year the contract started. They were given additional sick time to compensate for that. And they were also given a better benefit plan. So the plan through the town was 100% of your pay, right? You would get 40% and your 60%. But the plan that we did go with does not coordinate benefits. So you basically have your plan through AFLAC, which is completely separate from your pay from the town.
Okay, thank you.
So moving on to department goals for this upcoming year, there's a lot of processes that we were able to implement from, I call it the Ann and Steve days, just going back to munis procedures, to hiring procedures, to anything you can think of. We have a PAF, which is our personnel action form, which allows us to make any change in our payroll system for our employees. Those processes needed to be implemented again. And refined, especially we have a lot of newer staff as well. So along with bullet 1 and bullet 2, we had to implement those processes again, define them, and then we had to train and teach the staff. And I talk about the PAF form, one of the biggest ones that we trained all the payroll coordinators, the treasurer's office and myself sat with all the payroll coordinators. We'd like to do it quarterly, just because we have a lot. You may not have need for us to use that form every so often. You're not going to retain how to fill that out. And it is important to get it right, because if you don't get it right in the system, it throws everything else off. We have, again, established that staff engagement committee, who our next charge, we've been working on surveying other towns for an opt-out program, as well as working on the 2 policies that you see in front of you, which is the tuition reimbursement program and the employee rewards program. So those will be 2 upcoming programs that we put in front of the select board to work with them on. We have utilized systems in our payroll software to create better efficiencies. We've also utilized software. I talked about Laserfiche, implementing the payroll records in there. We'd like to continue to do more on the HR side in our payroll module. In the HR module in the payroll system. For example, there's separations and terminations section that we could utilize. There's an accidents section. There's a performance evaluation section. All of these could be very valuable for tracking and reporting purposes. And a big one that we've been able to touch on at the end of last year, we'd like to start, I think a lot of departments were unaware that the HR budget has professional development funding in it. So we were able to assist a couple other departments. We set up an Excel class that we had 12 participants in it at Town Hall for pivot tables. We allowed, there was a virtual leadership academy series on communication from the Mass Municipal Association that there were a few department heads that attended that. And we also were able to send members of the accounting team to the Mass Municipal Suffolk Municipal Finance Seminar. So we're continuing to do those, and we'd like to do more. We have spread the word that HR does have a professional development line item, so we're seeing more and more requests come through to utilize that, which is great. So going into the budget itself for the wages and expenses, I do want to just give a brief history of the request that is in front of you. We are requesting a new position for a 19-hour administrative clerk. The HR department serves all town departments, including light and water, and the school department for benefits purposes. And in fiscal year 23, we were granted this position. and for half the fiscal year, and the other half, the finance department actually helped fund a 15 to 19 hour per week position for, like I said, half that fiscal year. In FY24 budget, this position was cut. And so I am requesting this position to be put back in the budget. So as you can see, the total wages are $215,236, and the total expenses are $151,600, totaling $366,836.
How much is the 19 hours worth?
It's $24,824.
And that's the change in hourly from last year, the hourly wages? Is
So-
that position?
Yep, so forgive me, the change in hourly wages consists of the cost of living increase for the HR director, myself, and the HR generalist and benefits administrator, as well as the request for the 19-hour administrative clerk, which is $24,894. So after meeting with Ryan as the interim town administrator and the budget team, we kind of went over how we could be creative, I guess you could say, in making this happen, and being sensitive to the fact that it is a request of almost $25,000. So the ask is that we transfer $20,000 from the personnel reserve fund line item in the HR budget to cover a lot of those those wages that are requested. So the total line item difference is zero from what I requested originally.
So how much is in your reserve fund now?
Right now, there's 60,000.
I think you said transfer, so it's really less a transfer. It's just that, yeah, so well, not even reallocated. So we just cut the expenses to sort of as an offset to adding the extra position. So it's not a dollar-to-dollar match, but it's a way to help recognize the fact that we need to balance some things off there.
And the 40,000 is expected to be sufficient moving forward?
We believe so, yeah, based on past history.
So past history spending out of that personal reserve fund, it was originally created to help mitigate for if you have an employee who carried over their sick time and then they retire, for example, you would need to pay that vacation out. The department necessarily hasn't budgeted for that. And then we haven't used it to date since it's been created. I believe it was created in FY22. And then since that, we've also spent, I believe it was almost almost 1,200 on flags for Memorial Day for the Veterans Office. And then there was one other expenditure out of there, which was, I think it was roughly 40 or 50,000, but it was a one-off that would not occur regularly. It was a billing issue in another department.
Sure. And do we have limits on how much vacation and so on employees can carry over?
Yes, so non-union employees are allowed to carry over 200 hours every fiscal year, which is about 5 weeks.
5 times what I can carry.
And last but not least, so just projecting out, just with the creation of this position, eventually I would like to establish an actual HR administrative assistant, which there used to be one on the compensation grid itself. Right now, this would be proposed to be placed under the admin on-call, but I would like it specific to HR itself. We eventually would probably evaluate an increase in hours for that part-time 19-hour position. Reason being is expectations and needs of employees, vendors, retirees, all those that we serve, they are significantly increasing. Time that you spend with them, explaining the processes, explaining what they need to do, reporting practices that are necessary. There's a lot of needs and demands that have increased. So over time, we would probably look to increase those hours as well. And then just as a general budget, I like to evaluate where we can cut costs and be better. We always try to look at, I'll give one example of other companies. Can we use other companies for drug testing, physicals? What's cheaper? We always do try to evaluate things like that. So going forward, that's what I'll continue to do for the department. And that's it.
Any other questions for Michelle? Okay.
Thank you very much. If I could actually say one other thing, I do want to give the finance team and everybody that has worked on the budget a compliment. The communication portion, I am HR, so I like to give a compliment. The communication portion of this entire budget, countless hours go into building this, and it was great working with them and the communication that they had with us, so thank you for that.
Okay, next up is the man behind the curtain, Mark Corey from LCTV. This is page 201 of your budget.
Attention to the man.
Now you actually have to pay attention.
Good evening, everybody. So LCTV, some major accomplishments. Well, you know, they don't give you enough room to put all the stuff we do, but I put that we launched our new video on demand site, which I think was a pretty good accomplishment. We do cover 11 different boards and committees every month, as well as at least 5, I think, that we process their meetings. You know, they record them. We don't really air them live or anything, but we get them up on demand. So that keeps us pretty busy. And anyway, I hope that you've had a chance to look at the new site and to see that it's much easier to navigate, and hopefully you're happy with that. For the, let's see, 25 budget updates, our department goals for 25 would be to complete our video archiving project, which is through YouTube, actually. Taking all our old DVDs, converting them to digital, and then uploading them to YouTube. If you subscribe to YouTube, our channel, you may notice you get a lot of notifications about meetings from 2013 or graduation from 1993, because we, you know, have a lot of archive stuff to put up there. But we're hoping that that'll finish up this year and or next year, next fiscal year. And anytime anyone wants to see a program or request a program, we can send them to the link for YouTube. So that's kind of fun. We're also going to be launching, hopefully, our LCTV podcasting channel. I'm researching that right now, but we do have kind of a famous first person who wants to be. Jim has volunteered to break the ice on that one, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, that's one of the things we plan. We're going to hopefully do it earlier than 2025, but put it in there for the next year goal. The next thing is the budget requests. We don't have anything specific for next year, but we do, with our license agreements with Comcast and Verizon, these are the amounts that they give us for capital purchases outside of the 5% of the gross revenue. So we take that $48,000 and we put it in a capital line item just in case something breaks or something happens and we need to purchase something quickly. We'll have that funding. We don't have to go through the town meeting process to have a warrant.
If you don't spend it in FY25, does it just sit there so that it's available sometime for you to use, or?
It goes into our big piggy bank.
Okay, but it doesn't go away if you don't use it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No. It's a check that they cut to us. It's
Okay,
not-
great.
The next slide is the town administrator revised capital budget request. There was none. for that. After that, we have the projected 5-year capital plan, some things that we may or may not purchase, but some ideas anyway would be a new or used van. We were looking into getting a hand-me-down from the police department, but it seems that when people are going green or something, that you have to go to an electric vehicle if you're gonna, get a van or something. I don't know. I heard something like that. So I don't know if that's true. They're selling their old vehicles. They're not handing them down to other departments. Am I correct in that?
It depends. So some of them we may be putting back into the fleet, Mark, so that is a possibility that maybe LCTV could use it. But if you're talking about the van, then that's a different use.
Right. Well, it wouldn't necessarily need to house equipment or people sitting in it. It just needs to transport from A to B.
A to B.
So something like whatever they have, their bigger vehicles that could. But I don't know, I was told something about, I guess I shouldn't listen to that person.
Mark, give us names.
Gary Wilson told me I could give us. No, I don't know, maybe I dreamt it. Some new iMac editing computers, replaced our portable cameras, computer and camera equipment, they change every 4 or 5 years. You get new technology that comes out, and the stuff you have is ancient. You know it from laptops and computers. It's the same thing for us. So we constantly have to keep on top of the latest and greatest things so that we can be relevant. So that's kind of the plans for that. In FY25, the department operating budget request highlights.
Ken, before you move off
Yes.
on the capital, is there any plan for any capital in the senior center? In the new Shattuck Center?
That's part of the build. It's figured into the cost. We don't have to pay.
Not
for
your
that.
budget.
It's not in your budget? Okay, thank you.
And there is, by the way, yeah. So we actually started the 19-hour position because it was funded through the IMA, which began July 1st, the new IMA, which is a 3-year IMA. And then usually we go year to year on that, but this time we signed a 3-year agreement. And in it figured for a 19-hour person that would be in charge of Boxborough things. And so it's taken a while, but that person started last week. His name's Nick, and hopefully you'll get to see him and meet him, but good guy. But so that's where the funding comes from. That it comes through the Boxborough IMA, and we increased the level of that to cover the cost of that employee, the 19-hour person. And I understand what you mean, Jenna, about 19-hour people.
I knew you would.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So the next slide is the town administrator revised operating budget adjustments. There were none. And the next slide is projected 5-year operating needs. Again, I'll just make the pitch that I'd like the town to fund the benefits portion of LCTV's budget. If you look at FY25 benefits amount was $95,586. And so that's what we would be asking in the future, not in FY25, but maybe 26 or 27. The reason for this is anticipated drop in cable revenues from Comcast and Verizon. Unfortunately, or I guess you could say, or unfortunately, depending if you're a cable customer, we haven't seen a great loss in revenue. Other towns around us have, other cable studios. We have not, mostly because the cable companies keep raising the rates for people, so it offsets the amount. When people are cutting the cord, the prices go up for all the remaining people that still have cable. There is some legislation that's being looked at that would add broadband to the percentage that comes back to PEG access. That would be huge, because even if people cut the cable cord, most people still keep their internet for streaming and other things. So we would get a percentage of that revenue, which is probably at this point much higher than cable revenue. So, any questions?
Yeah, a couple of
Yes.
questions. Just down on page 202, just see the drop in health insurance, life insurance, Medicare tax, and pensions. Can you talk about that? I mean, that's good. How did that happen?
Somebody came off the insurance.
That was where the original ask of the town to pick up the benefits. The town's not picking up the benefits, so this budget would need to be adjusted accordingly. It doesn't affect the bottom line for the town.
I mean, that's a discussion I think we're going to need to have. I don't know when it started, where that money from Comcast and Verizon, it's basically being taken away by LCT, your department, paying for the benefits, which are the only department I think that does that. Is that fair to say? So I don't know when that began, but I'm not sure. Eventually, I mean, you can actually probably draw a line and see when that money's going to run out.
Yes.
Right? So that's a depleting.
Yeah, but it does change every year too. So when we looked at when Mark and the finance team sat down at the beginning of the year, Mark, I think, was starting at that point, and then we looked at what the balances were, and we said, well, gee, this doesn't seem to be a need where there's a real concern on that front. So, I think it's the kind of thing it's important for Mark to make this point, but we'll be looking at it every year and see where we are from a revenue perspective. But, right now, I think things haven't depleted in as precipitous a way that Mark is concerned about, but it's still out there.
It's an anomaly, because all the other towns around us are really hurting as far as the access studios. And so, I don't know, I don't know why exactly we haven't been affected.
But I also, I mean, you talk about a van or a vehicle, these are things, they're not irrelevant. I mean, I watch the three of you, four of you now, but you are driving your own vehicles.
Some cases, sometimes we take the marshmallow.
Yeah, which is what, 1875, I don't know. No, but, so I think this is something we have to look at. Somewhere in here, we're going to probably have to draw a line and say, okay, this year we're going to, let's utilize this money to purchase the vehicle that you have money for. It's just we're stealing, I would say, to pay your benefits, which...
Remember too, Gary, there's also a separate line within the contract with the cable companies that is dedicated to capital needs as well. So that's where some of that can come from. So it isn't just one bucket. There are sort of sub-buckets within it. So in terms of the funding, that rolls forward for capital needs. So if there is a vehicle, we should be able to take care of that as well.
But the fact of the matter is that LCTV is being robbed of that amount, where other departments are not being robbed of that amount, where you could do additional programming, where you could use those funds to provide, it's hard to believe, but an even better service to the community.
Well, yes, also we could make a 19-hour person a 20-hour person.
25, 30,
or 30 or 40, yeah.
And it might be better to start the transition to make your department's benefits handled the same as everyone else before we hit the cliff.
Yeah, I definitely want to have it on the radar, because I think it's something that eventually we're going to have to do, so we want to get in front of it.
So I'm not sure I still understand.
Yeah.
What's the 96,000 in capital expenses line item?
So,
Which is...
So his capital request was for 48, if you look at the back of the capital, so I think.
Right, but in the book, there's a capital expense line item for $96,000, and it was zero.
I know, but that's not what was put forth in the capital budget plan that we got separately.
yeah, we need to revise that. It was just the 48,000.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be on this page anyway.
So this is incorrect?
That's, the 96,000 is incorrect. Yeah, it should be 48.
Michelle,
Thank
do you
you.
have something to add?
Yes, just a point that we would need to research on the benefit side. I know there are some rules regarding some revolving funds where the benefits, with the benefits and the salaries tied together, so the benefits couldn't be paid by the general fund.
Okay.
Or enterprise fund, yeah. If you're paying the salary in the general fund, you have to pay the benefit in the general fund. But we're not sure about the revolving, so
Okay.
it's just a point of research for the future.
Thank you.
But that's an error that we'll fix in terms of the capital too, so thank you for pointing that out.
So, yeah, I'm really confused on this one, because there's that 96,000 in the capital, and there's $175,000 in benefits that we look like we budgeted in '24 that we're not budgeting in '25.
I think what Mark initially, when he did his budget, he thought that we were going to take the benefits portion into the general fund, but we did not, so those never got added, so we're going to have to add those back.
But does that mean the '24 numbers were wrong then too?
No, those are just budgeted numbers for '24, those are right.
So we did budget money for example, we budgeted $76,000 for health insurance
Yeah.
for his department, for the
Yes.
LCTV in '24, and we're
Yeah.
budgeting nothing in '25?
Yeah, that needs to be fixed.
Right, so Mark's, this was, what ended up getting printed was the initial request, but not where we finally, where we finally ended up, so we need to fix that.
So what are we budgeting for health insurance in '25, do you know?
I
Is
don't-
it close to what was budgeted in '24?
It should be.
Did we spend that in '24? There's no actual, so.
Not actuals yet, yeah. We're not there yet.
Right.
What I mean, Ryan, is that, like, I mean, you add up those four lines, it's like 173 grand that was in the fiscal '24 budget. So I mean, is that accounted for in the balanced budget, or is that money we need to find?
Well, it's a
separate budget.
It's a separate
Yeah,
budget, so
I
LCTV.
understand it's in.
It's
yeah.
not the general.
Yeah.
Right, so in the end, it's not going to impact our bottom line, but it is something we need to correct for the next draft.
I've got a totally different question. I saw in your goal, one of your goals is to add some more meetings to your coverage portfolio. And I just wonder if you talk a little bit about that, because I saw that it said try to get coverage for all regulatory boards. One could lobby for all public meetings.
And what we're working on is, we have one meeting owl, and it gets signed out to the different boards and committees that we don't televise live. They
Mark,
can,
can you explain what the owl is?
it's a little, looks like an owl, that's why they call it an owl.
Right, no, no.
360-degree camera, it splits the room into different shots, so it looks like you're in a multi-camera shoot when you're doing a meeting like this in a round table or whatever. But you record it through Zoom, it goes up to the cloud. We pull that video down, we put a title in the beginning and the end. We look at it, if you guys are jibber-jabbering at the beginning of the meeting and then you decide to start, so there's like 20 seconds of fluff that needs to be cut out, we take that out, put the title in the beginning and the end, and then put it up on demand for people to see. So in a sense, it's like another televised meeting, except it's not live, it's on demand.
Right, and so I guess I'm just wondering, I would like to see all the public meetings doing this, but it sounds like some boards basically get to decide whether they want to have their meetings recorded or not, by requesting an owl or not.
Well, some people just decide on their own that it's a good idea for us we want to start recording our meetings, yes.
Okay.
We don't go to them and say, you're all going to start doing this, because we don't have the manpower probably to do every single meeting, but people can record the meeting, and it doesn't take long to trim it and do what we need to do, but to actually, be involved with the taping of it or the recording of it. But we offer training in how to use the owl, how to set up things. We have laptops that we can sign out for people. We try to do what we can to help.
Sure. I guess I'm just saying, and I don't have any department in mind, but you can imagine someone saying, well, we're our board, we're just not going to.
Right. Clean Lakes Committee, for instance.
I don't even. I
It's really not
don't
a
care.
finance question.
But what?
It's really not a finance question. We're not.
Yeah.
right?
But it's duly noted.
Well, it is, okay, I'll make it a
Yeah,
finance question,
please.
because I would like to see then your department request enough owls so that, should the selectmen in their infinite wisdom mandate that all public meetings be recorded, which I think you should, then you'd be able to do that. Is that fancy enough?
Yes. Yes, yeah, that is, thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
Consider that, thank you.
So, I guess.
Also, I
that would be
pledge here
fair.
not to get sick, so if you want to do some of the benefits, I'll save some money there. I'll give you that.
And no one aim for him when he's walking out in the parking lot, I know.
Mark, how much are the owls, just out of curiosity?
$1,000.
Any more questions for Mark? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, also, if you want to be heard by people at home, just kind of, when you're talking, just move the microphone towards you, because they're split right in between each person. so.
And if we don't want to be heard,
Keep
doing what you're doing.
Next up is our assessor, Kathy Miller. This is, her budget is on page 76 of the budget.
Good evening. Okay, so I'll start with the major accomplishments of the assessor's office. And the first thing I'm going to explain is we did a complete neighborhood review and classification. Previously, when I started in Littleton, the neighborhoods, we had 10 neighborhoods, and they weren't defined. And so one of the things the Department of Revenue wanted me to do is define the neighborhoods so that when you're doing a sales analysis, you can see what each different neighborhood and how it's affecting sales. So for instance, neighborhood 1 is waterfront, 2 is water view, 3 is anything with obsolescence, such as the train goes through the back of the property, traffic on Great Road, King Street, so it's the train traffic, and noise from 495 and Route 2. So those properties have their own neighborhood, and so on. We have throughways, which is neighborhood 4. Then we have cluster neighborhoods that surround the lake. They have about 1/4 acre or less acreage. And then we have neighborhood 7 is the final one, which is cul-de-sacs, underground utilities, sidewalks, lights, and higher end. And this way, when we do sales reports, we can do it by neighborhood and see how the sales are affecting all the properties.
Was this of any use to you, or was this just a state mandated thing that?
So it's a state mandated thing, and it was the first year that we finished it, so it's kind of hard to see the results of it yet. I'm thinking over the next couple of years, we're going to see it more.
Okay.
So we did a timely fiscal year 24 assessment certification. We conducted an appraisal and reassessment of large distribution warehouses. So I don't know if anybody knows, but we did do an appraisal on Potpourri at 3 Distribution and one on Amazon. And we used that data and applied it to all of our larger warehouses in town. We did a complete review of all chapter land properties. We sent out letters and we invited anybody who was in chapter 61A and had agricultural land to come in and review their property record cards. We put their map up on the TV in our conference room, and we went over the property record cards so that if they had any questions, we could answer them and go over and make sure, because over time, farmland changes. You might have 10 acres in corn, and that might change to, produce and whatnot. So we went over everything. And completed the tracking and entering of the sewer special assessment for billing. That had to be a whole Excel spreadsheet. We had to go into Munis and create accounts for each one of the properties getting the assessment. The department goals for fiscal year 25, again, successful and timely for year 25 recertification. And we're going to do a complete review of all municipal land and combination of vacant parcels. We've already started this over a year, and what we did is we looked at all the land the town owns, and we tried to group it and make sure that if it's conservation, it had the right conservation code. If it was the town-owned water and whatnot, And we're going to try to combine some of the smaller parcels, and that's going to be phase one. We're going to try to combine them so that we have a better idea of what we can use them for going forward. Right now, they're scattered. Some of them are small, but we're hoping that if we look at them and they're bigger, we can identify some potential fields and maybe some uses for some buildings or whatnot, affordable housing and other things. We're going to do a complete commercial industrial land review this year. As most of you are aware, industrial land is booming right now. Commercial's a little down, and so I'm using my resources to do a complete land review. And then we're going to do a procedural manual for the office. We've had a lot of turnover in the past couple of years, and one of the things I thought that would be beneficial is having a manual that identifies how to enter abatements, how to enter exemptions, because right now, every time a new person comes in, we're starting from scratch, sitting there, how do you enter a deed? How do you look at the maps? And so we're hoping that that's going to be useful. There's a shortage in assessing, and I don't plan to have April and Hannah forever, so that's rounding out my goals. No capital budget request. No revised budget. No 5-year capital. Fiscal year 25 operating budget request highlights. So I was looking to get Near Maps into the town. Near Maps is, they're a company and they do 2 flyovers a year. They do one in the spring and one in the fall, and their imagery is next level. And it will allow the assessors to not have to go out in inclement weather. We can pick up permits without having to go out. Right now, the field lister, she does our cyclical inspection. She goes door to door, and she'll leave a door hanger and she'll measure. There's a lot of private ways in Littleton, and there's a lot of no trespassing signs. But the state wants us to make sure that all our information is up to date, and so we have to do it every 9 years. And so this way, some of these properties, we can just zoom in, we can measure them. If we're trying to close out some permits and we want to see if a shed or a pool's there, you can just kind of zoom in. Right now with Google Maps, they're 1.5 years behind. So a lot of times I don't see the new construction that's there. So we do have to go door to door to pick that permit and that new growth up. So it's going to be very beneficial to the office to get the Near Maps. Our wages were just normal step increases in the office.
Total budget of 317.
17, yes.
Sure.
Sorry.
Just to say too, I think for Kathy too, the detail on these pictures is to the point where you could even see, you can do assessments on roads too. Like you see there's cracks, the cracks in the pavement. It's that detailed.
Did you get a chance to go on? I sent you a login.
Yes,
did you?
you
Yeah.
did.
They. I think other departments, if they get a chance to get in there and use them, we're going to see that they benefit their departments as well. I don't think it's just going to be for my department. So no revised. Did we just go back one?
No, this is, you just here. So there were no adjustments from the TA budget here.
So for the 5-year operating needs, there's going to be contract increases and software updates. I use Patriot Properties for my camera system, and every year they increase their services. I contract out for Patriot to do commercial industrial properties. I do the residential in-house, and so those are going to be increasing. And then fiscal year 26 is our certification year, every 5 years. And we're going to need more support services for vendors, but that'll be a 1-year only. It's every 5 years. I come and I request an increase in the budget just to take care of other reporting for, there's numerous reports that have to be done for the state during the certification year that we can't be done in-house. And so.
Do you have a ballpark figure in mind that we should expect to see next year from you, or is it too early to tell?
It's too early to tell because it was 5 years ago and prices have increased so much. I'd rough it about 8,000.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
What line is the Near Maps in? I'm not seeing anything increase by 8,500.
Software, contract and maintenance, I believe.
Oh, okay.
It went up by 5,250.
Yeah, I tried to decrease, we looked at a budget and thought, I wanted to make it more digestible to get the NAM maps. We did go down 500 on our travel line item, and we reduced our conference and education from 6,000 to 500. I was trying to look at places that we could probably skim off a little bit and get NAM maps in here for the least change in my budget.
That's appreciated.
Any question on next? Did you want to bring that up? I know that's.
The Amazon vehicles, when Amazon first came in, we talked about the vehicles being registered in Littleton so that we could capture the excise. Is that something we're monitoring? I've seen a few Florida plates and just didn't know.
Was that in the HCA?
It is in the HCA.
Is it in the HCA?
I think it's in the HCA.
Yeah, I don't recall specifically, but I know that
I
we.
do know last year, the year before, Ryan had me look at the motor vehicle commitment book, and we went, and there was quite a few. I don't know if it met how much they anticipated coming to Littleton, but I can definitely go back and look at tomorrow and let you know and send it out what the commitment one is and what their vehicle load is.
I think it said that any, if I remember, I was actually just looking at this recently, believe it or not, and it said any vehicle that would be in Littleton for more than 3 months of the year had to be registered and pay excise.
They've gotten crafty with U-Haul vans, I noticed. So.
What was that?
They've gotten pretty crafty using U-Haul
Yeah.
vans. So it's
prior to
Well, it's
them
hard
coming,
because some people use some of them use their own vehicles too, so.
prior to them coming, I know that Milford had that problem, the city of Boston had that problem. There were different communities that we had reached out to that were having a lot of out-of-state registered vehicles, and the communities in which they were operating were not realizing.
Aren't they independent contractors?
Pardon me?
Aren't they independent contractors? They're not employees.
They were
of
committing
yours.
to something like 300 vehicles or something, and when they first came in with, was it Northbridge?
Northbridge.
Yeah.
We can look that up. though.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
sort
definitely
of
get that to you tomorrow. I don't think it was 300, but I don't think
But
they
it
were
may be,
that far
We're going
off.
to see what the number
Yeah.
is, yeah. Okay. All
I'd
right.
have to go back and look at it, but that's just
Good, we'll look
another
into
stuck
it.
up.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to be in the HCA.
I don't think that we put it in there. I thought we discussed it, but, yeah. Thanks, Kathy.
Anything
Any
else?
questions for Kathy?
thanks, Scott.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, thank you, Kathy. All right, next up is Michelle Reynolds, accounting. It's on page 72 of the budget.
Thanks, Matthew.
Good evening, Michelle Reynolds, a town accountant. I told Jim it was my first time ever presenting before the board, so be gentle. Okay.
Come on.
So some major accomplishments, as a lot of you know, there's been a lot of transition in the accounting and finance area with the departure of finance director. I was asked to step up into the town accountant role, and it's been flying by, learning all new things, and we kind of reconfigured. So we went from finance director, who was the town accountant, and assistant town accountant and financial analyst position. The financial analyst position was not filled until June. We had an intern here for about a year. So he came in, and actually he departed in November to go home to Texas. So we wish him all the best. We've got a vacant position. So now it consists of town accountant, assistant town accountant, and financial analyst vacant position. So we trained the intern, hired him, then he left. So we've just recently hired an assistant town accountant, Ashley, who's doing fabulous. She's been here for like 3 weeks. So she's dived right in and taking on all sorts of tasks. We've had also a part-time retired finance person, Bob, who was a senior tax worker. He's come over and helping us for maybe a couple more months to get us through till we can hire for this vacant position. Some projects that we've run through probably since maybe February, March of last year, the chart of accounts change, which was heavy lifting by the consultants to do the bulk of the pre-work, and then we had to do a lot of testing. Got that configured over with, a couple of bumps, but basically very minor disruptions to the normal course of business. We ran an upgrade, again, with the assistance of a consultant from outside and from the whole finance team and the HR team. I think she's gone. But it was a big team that was involved in testing, a lot of effort and a lot of checklists to make sure the upgrade went well. And again, a few little hiccups in a couple of weeks, and we got most of it figured out, assistance from IT as well. So we're kind of settled. We're looking to actually do a very minor version upgrade over the next couple of months. So we'll just throw another software fun. With assistance from, much assistance from our treasurer and our assistant treasurer, it's been a whole learning experience for the three of us in filing everything online for setting the tax rate. And then we'll continue to work on, staffing and sort of getting settled in with new people with lots of knowledge.
And training Ryan, right?
You're doing a fine job of that.
Department goals are kind of very basic. Timely state filings. We were kind of behind the 8 ball this past season, and really looking to, with a lot more knowledge coming into the next year end, that'll go a lot smoother. Filling the vacant financial analyst position. And once the assistant gets settled and trained, we're looking to expand training to departments that might need it. As departments have had a lot of transitions, we can only help by fleshing out their software skills. And then looking at other software modules. Michelle mentioned additional parts of HR and payroll that could be expanded. We sort of give an assist with that, and within our budget, we have what's called PACE education training, which allows people to take virtual webinar type training for their parts of the system that they use. And then education ongoing for myself to be certified as a government accountant, and additional training for Ashley and a future person. We have no bill requests. We don't have a really 5-year capital plan at the current time. And just some budget highlights here. Accounting services includes the ClearGov budget software, which we're just starting to use. That ends up eventually, when the budget is finalized, that ends up being online through ClearGov. You can go on to see other towns and compare what their budget books look like, and all that information is out there. Tyler PACE education software that I mentioned for core users of the financial software. And then we have a small consulting budget related to complex financial transactions. We do have some mentors that are helping me, but we also sometimes just need the consultant to answer the hard questions. So I reach out to them maybe every month or two with some really tough questions, so we can get it right on this end. The wages, on the wages part, we had kind of flipped, including a budget line for the finance director and then assistant town accountant. So we flipped it now to be just town accountant, assistant, and financial analyst. And so with that change, decreased wages by $116,000. In addition, the TA budget, as we ran through, we cut out a stipend to the finance director, and we trimmed conferences and meetings and travel, sort of relating to the finance director as well. We were able to trim that back a little bit. expenses totaled $101,585.
We also added, due to the pace, I think we originally had.
I think we had enough money in our budget before, and there really was no impact, but if we really want this great education that people can schedule on their own, and it's primarily related to the core finance team as well as HR payroll users.
What is included in the increase in accounting services?
That's the pace.
Oh, that's PACE?
Yeah.
Okay.
So accounting services, the PACE is really the big one.
Okay.
PACE is, I think, about 16,000 a year.
Yeah, we're down to 17, right?
Yeah, we actually might be able to trim that a little bit. I think they have some options that I've reached out to them to say, well, we can get a full option or slightly less. If we look at what we used thus far this year, we might be able to trim that back a
Just
little
something
bit.
to look at for the final. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So projected FY '25 to '29 operating needs, really nothing new, typical steps. Probably some increases in software, software costs. They usually go up every year or so. And future audit costs, so I think we have a 3-year agreement for the audit.
This will be second year, I think, of the agreement?
Second?
I believe we're going into the second year.
So the 23 audit would be the second year, because they do the 22 audit.
Okay.
And then.
Right, yeah, we'll have to look at that.
So that could be up for renegotiation next year.
I think the new financial policies, we switch auditors, correct, after Wheeling Long do one cycle?
3-year cycle.
Then we have to take
Yeah.
it.
And I would assume costs are gonna escalate at that point. It's only reasonable to expect, the costs of providing the services, their payroll will go up, just like everything else.
I think that's it.
Yep.
You did great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Seriously, thank you very much. Thank you, the whole team. Thank you for stepping up and helping each
Yeah,
other
said
and
we've been all
growing through it together.
holding the strings together, all together.
Do you want to get a selfie with us in the back?
And I just want to say, thanks to Ryan for really guiding a lot of this, where we've kind of, not had a whole, with finance director departing, what do we do? And I was like, no, we got it, we got this. And then the team we've had between Kim and Deb and Robin, we're all kind of like really pulling it together and getting it done. And it was, only through all of them that we could get through all the hard processes during the year.
Yeah, Michelle's done a great job, as Fred noted, that you guys are doing a great job of training me, so thank you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next up is treasurer collector and tax title. This is Robin Healy, the town treasurer.
Hello, Robin Healy. So a lot of the major accomplishments that we have up here are shared with other departments, so I don't want to keep circling the drain here. But we did maintain the AAA bond rating, thanks to Steve and Kim. I think that was their last. The November one was just a repeat, but you had the big meeting for the last bond in May. We did our special assessments, which was a big project. We worked with the assessor's office to get that done, and light and water. The software upgrade, and we added payroll functions to our office, reconciling benefits, which Michelle also mentioned, and we were a leadership role in setting the tax rate for the Department of Revenue. For our goals for this year is to continue cross-training for all staff. I'm right in the lead for that because there's lots to learn, and to continue to improve and maximize accuracy and efficiency. So this was our budget that we presented. The cuts were, it was a small decrease in salaries, and most of it was in professional services. We decreased that line. However, I will note that with the step and grade change for Kim, that 6294 is going to change to 2619. So we'll have to make those changes in the next round. The tax collector this is the budget that was presented. There were some cuts. Steve and I actually sat with Deb Richards and went through, and she really wasn't using conferences, supplies, materials, and travel a lot, so we reduced them to total up to $1,200 in savings. Wasn't a lot, but it was something. Tax title, that budget, I looked at it, it's year over year, it's been the same amount. Sometimes it's closer to the 16, sometimes it's less, and it's hard to say what's going to get spent out of it. Advertising goes into it, attorney's fees, registry fees, so it's just a flat line item overall. And that's it. I didn't put capital in there, I deleted those slides because I have no capital. Does anybody have any questions?
How much was the salary adjustment for Kim?
So the increase is $3,675 from what was initially budgeted out there, so.
I have one question, and I don't know which department this falls under necessarily.
Just remember, I'm new too.
Yeah. Well, Steve will probably answer this one anyway. So, with the betterments going out for the sewer,
Yes.
Is that more work on which department, and how is that accounted for in the budget? And is it require more manpower somewhere or anything, or how does that all?
So we're reconciling them. We're moving money into a betterment account every month. So it's definitely more work reconciling. It's just another account we're looking at. It's part of the sewer, yes? Right. Would you say?
Well, it's a combination between the sewer department, the treasurer's office, and the assessor's office to get all the numbers straight so we can get them on the bills properly.
Well, there's that part, and then there's the accounting part on the back end that we have to, when the money comes in, to allocate it properly into the right buckets.
The software system.
Yeah, the software does that. And we reconcile it every month, and we have a separate account that it's going into.
The question basically is, do we need extra resources to handle the issuing and the things of the betterments? Or it's...
No. I wouldn't say so, no. It's just another responsibility.
Okay.
We got it.
So they have plenty of time.
You'll let us know.
You find time, right? Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Veteran Services. John Roski's here tonight. It's on page 154 of your budget. So, John, welcome.
Excuse me. Major accomplishments on Memorial Day Parade, Veterans Day activities also. Completed inventory of all veteran graves, West Lawn Cemetery, in order to update missing and damaged veterans markers or medallions. When I inventoried last, it was 740. Since then, we've had added 4 there, so I've got 4 more people there to look at. Department goals, fiscal 2025. Oops, sorry. Yep. Ensure that veterans receive the benefits that that are available for them from both the state or federal governments and the Veterans Administration. To obtain and place the missing veterans markers and medallions on graves as found.
Just if you could for the group, not everybody necessarily knows what.
I'm sorry?
Could you just highlight for the select board and the finance committee what kind of benefits that you can provide to veterans? I don't. It's just
Chapter 115 benefits is what we debate. It all depends on what their income is. It ranges, the limits are up to $8,000 in a checking account or in cash, in alpha and whatever else their problems are. I've got one client right now that has no income other than what we give them at all, so it's a family of 4, so it's kind of hard. But there are other ones that they're just getting basic medical reimbursement every month for whatever they pay out for medication that Medicare or insurance company doesn't pay for.
But there's some
So you couldn't
flexibility.
reimburse it for the Medicare premium that they have to pay.
Right. Yeah, so I think it's just important because John's been working with his clients on a regular basis, and the things that he can provide are unique to whatever their special needs are. If they're coming back from the hospital stay and they need to get their bathroom handicap accessible, things like that. It's really just it's important work that what John does in providing for our veterans. So it's a lot of breadth in terms of what you can do with that. So
Then John's also responsible for getting 70% of what is paid out reimbursed from the state.
75.
75, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you. That helps. And sometimes that can be tricky, but he's right on top of the Department of Veteran Services. Very, very pleased with John's performance.
Yeah. Where was I?
capital requests, John said.
Capital expense?
Yeah.
I have no questions this time. I don't anticipate anything capital-wise.
Yeah, any capital.
Other than eventually you have to spend some money to buy some markers, stuff like that. But we'll work that out.
Okay.
Budget requests, again, for nothing that I know of
Basically,
right
yeah,
now.
basically straight line from last year. We have some John's wages and some other minor expenses out of that budget. So basically, level funded from FY24. And the last piece is this is the two elements, John, for benefits for the $175,000 is the 75% reimbursement. Maintaining that same. And we also have $10,000. This is where we budget for our VFW lease, the $10,000 for VFW lease under there as well. So that's $185,000, and that's staying level funded as well.
Yep, that's level funded, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, so John, yeah, and then just continuing on, John doing the great work, important work that John's continuing to do on our behalf.
Yeah.
On behalf of our veterans.
Yeah.
So,
John, can you tell us about how many veterans actually receive benefits in Littleton on an annual basis?
In Littleton, I don't have the chart with me. I have 10 clients right now, active clients. I know there are 300. As of the last census, there were 378 veterans listed in town. We'll see what this one is going to come up with. I had a chart from the VA, and I can't remember how many there were on that whole total chart from the VA page for, that comes to town. It's like $118,000 a month, roughly, for coming into town for different people.
Certainly a reasonable
from the
amount of
VA
money coming in.
So,
yeah. Great, thank you.
For disabilities or pensions or whatever.
Yep.
So.
John, when you and I met, you had mentioned you wanted to do a mailing you had mentioned you wanted to do a mailing to those 380 veterans.
Yes, that's that. Well, if you got your census information in the mail recently, or it just came out, it's in that package.
Okay, so
it's everybody getting it in town. It's already been done.
Oh, okay.
No cost to extra cost to that.
Terrific.
So it was all sent out thanks to the town clerk. so, on that. So that's been done. I actually had a phone call today asking a question about it, so, good.
Good.
It's out there. We'll see what happens at that, when I get it all back.
Glad to hear. Okay. All right. Any other questions for John?
Thank you.
I know the Personal Advisory Committee recently created that position. I don't know if that hasn't come before us yet. In prep, just to get it, the position under the Schedule A, I believe.
That's right.
Is that right? So we're kind of preparing for the next couple of years when we hit a population of 12,000. We have to have a full-time veterans agent. So that small budget line you're seeing there of 8,000 will be eventually a full-time employee. So just to be aware. I mean, that could be 10 years from now. I mean, but that's just something to be aware of. Depending on our
550.
Yeah, 550 King plays a lot.
Any other questions for John? Thank you, John. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Just really quickly, one thing that typically falls under the police chief is our animal control officer. This is a shared service led by Boxborough, but it's shared with Stowe and Littleton. So this is a monthly stipend plus extra call hours per our agreement. So we're anticipating potentially a 5% increase on this, but I know the chief has been in contact with the chief in Boxborough about any adjustments on this. So if this comes down any, we'll correct that accordingly. But this is how we basically take care of our animal control needs in town. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on to town committees. I see that Linda is here, and is it Rebecca? Rachel. All right. I'm sorry, Rachel. So I wanted to just call out because it was a request made from the Historical Commission for, I believe, $10,000 for, and you're welcome to come up, please. It was a request made. It's not included in the budget, but a request for $10,000 to celebrate what I believe is the 250th anniversary of Patriots Day. So I just, so thank you for coming, and turn it over to you. Make your presentation.
So I'm Rachel Robinson. I'm on the Historical Commission. For anyone who doesn't know, that every year, April 19th, we hold a small memorial at Liberty Square to commemorate Patriots Day. It's always held 7 p.m., always on the 19th, despite whenever, Monday, Wednesday, doesn't matter. So again, not sure if everyone's aware, but with the 250th anniversary of Patriots Day coming up in 2025, there is a lot of activity, especially Concord, Lexington, Arlington, Lincoln, and even within the state. Boston, Cambridge, they're all doing big celebrations. Concord, Lexington, Lincoln, Arlington have all pulled in a lot of money to collaborate together. They've each town put in $50,000 to hire one person just to navigate and work the whole system for them. But we're looking for $10,000 to do one event. We have our typical event. We want to make it bigger. April 19th, 2025 happens to be a Saturday. So this is a good opportunity for us to make it a big community event, something that hopefully everyone will come to and everyone will appreciate Patriots Day. We'd like to still do the typical event that we do, but we'd move it earlier, not 7 p.m. We'd do it earlier in the morning, and then have a community event at Fay Park. And this would include working with other small organizations. We're working with the Historical Society to have an exhibit there, which is why Fay Park obviously is the ideal location, not just the parking, but also that it's next to Historical Society. And then we could close a portion of Foster Street from about 14 to 2, have that be a place where we could have food trucks and have, activities that really kind of get people to show up and stay. Have games, have activities, reenactment of Paul Revere's Ride from a local theater troupe. We've been spitballing a lot of ideas. Groups to sing songs from the musical 1776. And hopefully other groups like the Scouts, Girl Scouts, Rotary Club, these people can kind of get together, do little events too. So we're looking to make this happen. We've been in touch with Park and Rec. They have said that they will work with us. So we've commandeered them on board. But so we're looking to get a nice chunk of change. It's going to be a while. Obviously, it's more than a year away, but we have a lot of planning to do. And that's why we're asking for a considerable amount of money. And any questions?
No, we were just chatting.
Sure.
I know we had successful events over at the IBM property.
The Oktoberfest.
Just tonight.
So yeah, so we definitely had a bunch of locations sort of as like backup. Again, obviously Fay Park for us is because the historical society's there.
You mentioned it. That's nice. Okay.
But that was we threw out the IBM park because I did know that the Oktoberfest had been there. Is it going to be under construction? That was the other thing of like whether it was going to be torn up and
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. We do have kind of a list of, obviously Fay Park, it could be underwater. It's be April, could be a late fall.
In the old days, we used Whitcomb Field as a circus.
Okay.
We ate a lot of stuff there. If that's another option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where it is a Saturday, we have.
Right. Well, like every third Thursday got moved to the playground, so
Yeah.
we're aware that there might have to be some last minute changes.
The only question I'd ask is, has there been any effort to look for sponsors, whether it be Workers' Credit Union or any of the banks, frankly? Northern Bank and Trust is making a substantial investment in those in common.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Lapoli Development, and there's a number of FIBA Technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Potpourri Group was mentioned earlier by Kathy. There's some decent-sized Patriot Beverage, or just kind of a cool name too, Patriot Beverage.
Right, that would work quite well.
For this event. So if there's any way to collaborate with.
So that's, again, we just created the working group. We've kind of only, because we already do this event anyways, that's kind of why,
Right.
250th, we've had people from the community reach out to us, come to our meetings and say, you guys got to do something big. So that's why, again, but we kind of want to make sure it's going to happen. And there is some backing from the town, but yes, we have been talking about potentially getting some sponsorships, getting that involved.
Yeah.
We haven't, we kind of want to, we know the event will happen. We know we'll do something for Patriots Day, but whether it,
We can help this.
You know.
We can help this.
No, I think that I don't speak for myself, I'd be willing to propose that we backstop it at least with $10,000.
Right.
And then try to see if we can
Get it.
offset it.
that would be great. That's kind of we just need to know that that there's going to be funds so we can get the planning started and get something happening. Yeah. Absolutely. But yes, sponsorship is something we've definitely talked about.
Yeah. So this is kind of more of a heads up for right now because it's going to be.
Well, we would like to.
Need the money.
Yes, it's a little bit of. I understand can't say today yes, you're getting the money, but we do want to gauge that there's support. The next step for us is we want to have a town-wide design competition or competition, but that people can send in a logo and that we would pick a logo and that would be what we use on all official things. We could sell merchandise. We could kind of make it a big thing, and that would be a good start to kind of get the word out and get people involved. Maybe hopefully the schools, tell the art teachers, get a nice, hopefully a kid could do a nice logo for us. Kind of make that, again, very community feel with it.
That's awesome.
So. Anything else? Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Stein. I'm the chair of the Historical Commission. I just wanted to make it clear, as you probably did make clear, we're asking for the $10,000 in addition to our usual small budget of whatever it is, $4,880. I know that some years we haven't used our regular budget or very little of it, but next year we may need that full budget going forward. One thing that we might use it for is, as you know, 12 Robinson Road is now moving forward. The new owner is rehabilitating it. We have hired an expert historical preservation consultant who's on board. We've used CPC funds for that for this year. But we may need to tap into our own budget for that next year, because it's hard to predict what's going to happen with that site and what needs we'll need for historic preservation experts. So we would like to keep our budget for next year for that and for other things. We're going to reinstitute our historic markers program. There's a number of historic markers in town that need replacement. They're in bad shape. They've really deteriorated. The cost has gone up substantially, so we're going to try to use CPC funds for that, but again, because the costs have gone up so much, and I've looked at other towns and their costs have gone up a lot for this as well, we may need to tap into our budget. And so there's just a couple of examples of why we're asking for both our regular budget and the 10,000. Questions?
Just a quick question on Robinson Road. So I know you had a letter that was sent out to the Hager Homestead with the facade, some of the problems we had with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't get too much into it, but I did see the letter that the Historical Commission put, I guess, in dissent or basically expressing. Now, do you feel that the select board needs to review policy on, I looked at it and I was like, well, what's the teeth behind, we have a letter, what is the teeth behind it where another developer, and I'm thinking Robinson Road because that's the next historical building that's being renovated to some extent. If there's nothing done, or they know it's just a slap on the wrist,
so
what's at our disposal to?
Well, that's a great question. For 12 Robinson, we're in good shape.
Okay.
We have a historic preservation restriction that's in perpetuity, forever. And it was signed by the State Historical Commission, by the Select Board signed it, we signed it, that might be it. The new owner signed it. Of course, that'll be sold eventually to some other new owner, but this is in perpetuity. Okay. So that's in place, so that's great. There's only one other site in town that has that. So we're going to try to pursue that going forward for other sites as well. It's a little tricky, it's a little complicated, so that's fine. For other sites, however, that don't have historic preservation restrictions, we're in the same boat as with Hager. And I have reached out to the building commissioner or building department person, Mike, and I want to have communication with him and talk to him about developing procedures that we might be able to develop going forward so that there is more sense of preservation going forward rather than something that's not called demolition even though it really was demolition. And any other ideas we're certainly open to for
Yeah, I was just
protection.
thinking of it.
Another thing we're looking into, as we've talked about, is historic districts. Most towns have historic districts. Littleton does not. Years and years ago, it was proposed for the town center, and it did win. It needed a 2/3 vote. It got a majority vote. It didn't go through a 2/3 vote. We are looking at it again. We're looking at it, and we will talk to you. You guys have to approve it. A committee has to be set up, and then you guys have to approve it if the committee that's set up recommends that. One place we're looking for is Foster Street. That might be the first place we might propose, because people already take good care of their homes. It might be a low-hanging fruit. So, but we should look at other places in town also for historic districts. So that's something else we're looking into.
Great.
I was on that study committee a million years ago.
Frustrating.
He has a way with words.
Yeah. What we could, with the, no.
Anything else?
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Carolyn, I know you're here for
I'm here with
Okay, you're in support, all right. So just to go over this is just some of the quick pieces. We've got a lot of these budgets basically aren't changed. Disability Committee, $1,200. Memorial Day Committee for expenses for Memorial Day services, that's level funded at $1,250. We just discussed the historical commission, so the request before the finance committee and the select board is with this base budget of $4,480 plus the additional $10,000 for the 250th anniversary of Patriots Day. Cultural Council, unchanged at $5,600. Shade Tree Committee, staying the same at $5,000.
Other little ones like this.
Permanent Municipal Building Committee, we were proposing to keep that the same at $5,000. And that's pretty much it for committees.
Does sustainability not have a budget?
Sustainability Committee did not make the list, but that budget has not changed.
Okay.
So. I think we just sort of picked.
Sure.
That's fine. We get all the pieces and it gets to be a bit exhaustive,
Understood.
so.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, okay. Okay, next up, and our last item, I believe of the night, is insurance transfers and employee benefits. So, first piece is our property and liability insurance. Based upon our initial meetings with Maya, we are proposing a 10% increase at this. I believe we have a meeting that we're trying to schedule for the end of February when we'll know what the actual rate increase is. We hope this will go down, but this is based upon, again, the initial meetings with Maya and what they told us we should be budgeting for at this time. So we know that's going to be refined, and again, hopefully that will go down to the final.
So, one quick question on that. I know like the Affordable Housing Trust is paying for the Durkee property. Is that part of that 583 or is it supplemented some other?
No, that should be that should be within the Affordable Housing Trust. We're trying to keep those expenses within it, but they'll use Maya, or in that case, we probably wouldn't use Maya because Maya doesn't insure abandoned buildings, so it'll be a separate third party that they would hire.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's the 10% there. Then we have transfers. And two notable transfers that we have. So our transfers are done per our town finance policy. So capital projects, we increased that by $650,000. This is the amount of expenditures on the FY25 capital plan from free cash. So, so that number was revised and reflected accordingly. The next piece is our trust funds. So just to kind of go through some of the changes that we made to this in this revision, we reduced our capital, we increased our capital stabilization by nearly $356,000, again based upon our fiscal policy and what our capital needs are. OPEB contribution, we reduced that by close to $750,000. It's based on our prior actuarial report. We're going to hit on what the new actuarial report said, but at the time when we put the budget together, we didn't have that new data in. So between that and we reduced that figure by nearly $750,000. Debt exclusion stabilization, we also reduced that by about $475,000. We are still contributing toward that. We're still contributing about $300,000 for the next 4 years. That's in our model still. So we're still putting additional money toward debt exclusion stabilization, which will helps offset the cost of the items that we already have on the excluded debt. Which, Steve, remind me, what do we have on our excluded debt list at this point?
What projects?
Yeah, what projects do we have?
Middle school, Russell Street, police station. I think those are the only ones right now.
Right. Okay. And finally, we reduced the general stabilization amount by $150,000. And the reason for that is we had already met our policy goal for this and didn't need to exceed it or put any money toward that. So what that nets out to is, again, the net change for the transfers is it's a decrease of approximately $1 million for that. So, and again, we're going to talk a little bit more about what the update is, or the impact of the update on the audit, what that means at the end of the presentation. The next piece is employee benefits. And this covers town and school employees. It's included here. So our budget adjustments, employee health insurance, we're proposing to increase that line item by 12.6%. This is based upon a 10% projected increase, again, based upon our conversations with Maya, plus another 2.6% based on the fact that we've got new employees that are coming on. This is, again, another point that we think we're waiting for additional information. Maya released their initial range of rates at our MMA meeting. So we do believe this will probably come down, but the extent of it, we're not going to know until we actually meet with Maya. It's also dependent upon what our usage rates are, so it isn't just one figure. Maya is a pool of all communities that are involved with health insurance. So we do get great benefits from that in terms of pricing, as well as caps in terms of liability limitations that we have. So it really does help us. But our hope is that when we do meet with Maya, that figure will, for Littleton specifically, will go down, and we'll see benefit from that. Long-term, short-term disability, we've had a lot of conversations about that, and I think Michelle hit on that in her update. So employees are still eligible to utilize the program, but it is something that they'd be paying on their own. Middlesex County retirement, we're anticipating an increase of 9% based upon evaluation report, and it also includes a separate contribution from free cash. So we make extra contributions both to retirement and to OPEB, and we're going to, again, talk a little bit about some revisions that we're making on that. We reduced our Medicare number by 27,000 to reflect actual spending trends. Unemployment, we capped it. I think we talked about we thought about maybe increasing that, but keeping that at 41,000. And we reduced our OPEB contribution by $625,626, again, based on that last actuarial survey. So in terms of our benefits, the overall increase looks like 192,593, and that change is reflected there in yellow before you. So I had mentioned earlier about the OPEB audit and how important that is. Steve had mentioned, I think at one of our earlier meetings, that the new audit has a revised discount rate that I think went up from 6.5% to 6%, and that the inventory that was done in terms of staff and family members in the earlier audit needed to be revised. So we saw that there was an increase that we needed to account for in our OPEB contribution. So meeting with Robin and Steve and Kim, we looked at this, and we are, in terms of changes that we're going to be making, we're going to be changing what our OPEB contribution is and really balancing that off. So we're basically taking money from, or extra money that we have been putting into the pension account, and instead transferring that over to the OPEB to cover what would, this shortfall with OPEB. So we think we can still do that and still keep things balanced, and at the same time still continue to put additional contributions to both OPEB and pension, because we get great benefits from both of that by staying ahead. So still being fiscally prudent, but balancing this off based upon what our actuarial report says. So So again, that'll be another update you're going to be seeing for the final budget. And that's it. That's all we have for tonight. Any other questions?
I hope everyone's been keeping their list of ads and deletes and things. I know I have, and we have some cutting that we need to do to fit all these things in already. One of the things we're waiting for is the Magog Hill. You
We're
guys
meeting
meet?
tomorrow night,
Tomorrow
Wednesday
night?
night,
Okay.
to come up with a number.
So you'll have that for us Saturday?
At least a discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finance Committee, we're meeting tomorrow night, just to debrief on all these things and come up with what we think we could swing on our lists, if everybody's keeping their lists. Talk about capital, Carolyn's coming also, talk about the CPC budget and what we're asking for to fund capital items for. Any selectmen certainly welcome to attend if they like to hear that. And then Saturday, we have final departments that we want to meet with. The afternoon session, we talk about capital. That's kind of the first time we've talked about it so far. I don't know whether we're going to be able to come out of that meeting with a balanced budget. We'll have to see. Maybe it's maybe a good time. I know you all want to get out of here, but a good time to just hit on what people will be keeping track of, if there's other items. So I have, we have a school decrease of $250. I have Neshoba tech assessment going up by 60. I have the library salaries by 8,270. Chapter 70 revenue reduction of $210,383. The assistant treasurer salary going up by $36.75, and the historical commission asking for $10,000. So that's a total of $42,328 so far that we're off. So. Does anybody else have anything else that they've heard?
Nothing major. We don't have anything in for the orchard, right? Okay, that's fine. I didn't know whether we were looking at an offset or whether we actually had something in there. Okay.
We have, there was something, Ryan, from the Board of Health for an admin. Is that still being
Well,
asked?
they're already getting an admin within the budget, so not quite sure. They are going to be coming on, they've been invited for Saturday, so
Okay.
copied them on that. But, again, we're to the negative now, so we're just trying to make this work.
And is the veterans agent salary change going to hit the 25 budget, do we know?
So it may be updated in terms of the scale, but I think, but even then with that, I think I have to talk to Gary and see what it came in at, but the hope is we could try to keep it within the current budgeted limit, because the job pretty much works on an hourly basis.
Okay.
Did all the changes to LCTV, did that affect the bottom line?
It wouldn't, because LCTV is a separate funding budget, so we show it and represent it in the budget, but it wouldn't impact our bottom line in terms of any of the changes that we're talking about here in these highlighted. But that would need to be highlighted in the fine.
Do the adjustment in the library because
Yes, he mentioned
Yeah,
that.
8,270.
Are we expect anything on Saturday where it's going to hit us with more as well? I mean,
What's that?
I know conservation are there on Saturday.
Yep, yeah, so
They have a
on
personnel request
Saturday-
that's hanging out there.
Yeah, so for Saturday, it's conservation.
That was a request that didn't make that was cut. Their
Well,
issue.
so for conservation, I think what they were asking for was to maintain essentially 2 FTEs in it, and we are kind of balancing between the 2 employees that are in the department now, and they're essentially now at 44 hours. We're saying it's just 1 FTE at 40 hours. So that's a little bit of a tweak to how they're doing things, but I think Chase has been fairly straightforward that he's indicated that he's going to be asking for 2 FTEs for the Conservation Commission, so, so that's, that's one thing that we had to, had to tweak on that front. So I think we've got health, health's coming through, cemeteries, and then the
Police and fire.
Police, fire, DPW, so, and conservation, of course.
So at our retreat, we also talked about a grant writer, sustainability coordinator, whatever we're calling it, being another potential addition.
Business year.
That's everything that came out of that. I think, as far as budget-wise, I think that was all, that would affect the budget directly.
I think so.
The dollar amount that we're thinking of?
The number I heard for a sustainability coordinator is probably about 75 grand for a full-time position, but I don't know that that's necessarily what we're looking for. So,
I'm sorry, Mark, how much?
75 for full-time.
Full benefits.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
I guess a question for admin. Historically, when state revenues lag as much as they are lagging right now, I guess I question the ability of the governor to come up with even the budget that even close to the budget that she's suggesting. She's already raiding rainy day funds and whatnot this year. So I just wonder what your feelings are in terms of revenue.
Generally speaking, Fred, when we, the governor starts off, sometimes the legislature, in some circumstances, actually even goes higher than what the House 1 budget looks like, which traditionally what that's called. So I don't foresee there being significant changes off of what the governor has proposed based upon current budget challenges. Typically what House 1 establishes is a floor, and it's fairly rare, at least in terms of where they eventually work to, that would go down.
Yeah, they were pretty locked in.
Yeah. I don't, but I think to the point, I wouldn't anticipate, or even if the legislature increases that number, I'd still be hesitant to change that.
Personally, it just feels like there's an abyss there, and how deep it is a question in my mind. But the signals just don't feel right to me. You guys are closer to it than I am, but it just doesn't.
And again, for net for us, I think we budgeted 1%, and what we're essentially receiving is 1.2%. So it's just,
Yep. Okay.
It's not much.
Yeah, I think what feels a little different, I feel like we've had hit or miss on kind of the number before, but it's like, it's a little light, and then here's a bunch of ways you can generate a bunch of extra local money with a bunch of new taxes, right? So it's this little...
Yeah, I mean, you look at, okay, well, we'll raise this tax, and raise that tax, and raise that tax, and raise that tax. And that's all local tax.
Right.
Putting it all on local.
Right, exactly.
I think increasing the excise tax is, I'm hoping that's dead on arrival here.
I mean, without seeing the numbers on what 7%, what an increase of 1% of hotel, what it would do to Milton. I mean, probably a whole lot for other communities that have 4 or 5.
And we haven't done any estimates on it because right now it's a proposal by the governor at this point. So
we can't entertain it.
Yeah. So depending on where that goes,
could be a rescue plan next year though.
Oh no, next year going to be great.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
See you Saturday morning at radio.
Motion to adjourn.
What time? Second.
At 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Aye.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?